sort of brings us perfectly to our what just happened segment. So what did just happen, Bridget? We've had like a few really important developments since we last recorded while you were swimming, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's like it goes so quickly, right? Like I feel like it was just a minute ago that we couldn't stop talking about deep research, which I we still shouldn't stop talking about. But just recently, OpenAI released 2 new models, O3, which is and O4 mini. They're both reasoning models, and they're sort of the latest in the reasoning model sequence, I guess would be the way you would put it. And Google also released a new reasoning model, Gemini 2.5. And the enhanced reasoning abilities are really interesting in the O3 model, OpenAI's model. They can integrate visual inputs, sketches, whiteboards into their thought process. They can manipulate images to help the interpretation. So, as good as the reasoning models were, this is a significant step forward in those reasoning models. And from my using it, I can absolutely confirm that that's true. Perhaps the most important the feature I love the most is with O3, you can ask it a question and it will then figure out what it needs to do to answer your question, meaning which of the suite of ChatGPT tools um, does it need to access to give you the best answer. So sometimes I'll ask it a question and it will it's funny, it will also show you how it's thinking through figuring out the answer. I asked it a question recently and I mistyped the name of the company I was asking it to do some research about. And it was like reasoning in front of me and it was like, I think Bridget probably means R whatever it was like 3 letters. Bridget probably means RGI, not GRI, because GRI doesn't map on to anything she usually works on. It was literally like in front of me saying like Bridget's kind of like an idiot. It didn't really say it was really nice. But it reasons through, like, first your mistakes and then what it needs to do to answer your questions. And so sometimes it's mostly web research. Sometimes it's, image generation or analysis. Sometimes it's coding. I asked it one question that it had to do both web research and a little bit of coding, and it showed me the coding that it was doing as it did it, which is kind of what I've wanted all along. Like we've been complaining about how you kind of have to choose from this drop down bar about which model you want to use, and you have to know what the reasoning models are. You have to know what's the difference between a mini and the regular version. Um and and I don't want to have to figure that out. I want you to figure it out. Like you're really smart. Like I want to ask you the question and you figure it out, and now O3 does that. And it's a pretty stunning model and it's performed really well against the benchmarks. It's available, I think, to anybody with a paid subscription. I have a pro subscription, so I had it right away. So it's a pretty amazing tool, and everyone I've talked to who's using it is like having the same reaction, including our favorite uh, business school AI guy. Is that what we call Ethan Malik now? AI
The
scholar,
physics school
scholar.
AI guy.
Yeah. Um, he had a recent Substack about how good, O3 is, and same with Gemini 2.5 Pro. Ethan literally uses them all day as far as I can tell. And how many people are saying, like, "Is this AGI? Are we there? Like, is O3 AGI?" And a couple of kind of super users who you may or may not follow online, I guess you don't not 'cause you're not online, but, like, Tyler Cowen, The Economist, and a couple others were like, "Yeah, it's AGI. We're here. We got it." And it certainly feels like that. Um, it's still the case that, nobody really knows what AGI means, and it means different things to different people, and, as Ethan says, there's kind of like the jagged edge of the technology generally, there's kind of a jagged edge of AGI, and you don't it's it might we might well be in a, like, we'll know it when we see it, and for Tyler Cowen, it's now, and for me, it might be now, but, maybe for some others who, like, they're still better at it in certain things, they're not there yet, but, it's pretty amazing. It's just the agentic capabilities of it are just obvious to you when it's answering your question and it's showing you how it's thinking through, especially for me when it's, like, thinking through how to ask my question better. And it'll say, like, "I think Bridget probably means this because, it knows all these things about me, and it knows what I'm usually interested in and asking about." And so it it puts my question better than I can, and then figures out how to answer it. So that was a long explanation, but, you've been using O3, right? You love it?
Yeah. I also have Pro, so I have it too, and, it does crack me up to watch it walk through the reasoning process. I did exactly the same thing you did. I was trying to figure out something in an article about the economy, and I said something like, What do the rate cuts mean for X?" Whatever I was trying to figure out. But I typed rate cute instead of rate cut. And then I'm looking at the the reasoning. It's like you said, it's like Jen put rate cute. She clearly means rate cut. And then it pulls all these things. But like you said, what makes me laugh is at some point I must have told it to adopt this persona that was casual and also like emphasize skepticism in whatever output it had. I think probably because I was thinking about like how would I explain this to lawyers, and lawyers are really skeptical. But it sounds really reasonable when I watch it talk like a very, very smart person, or I watch it think like a very, very smart person. And then it comes back to me and it'll be like, "Howdy, Jen. Have I got news for you? But put on your skeptic's hat because there are a few caveats." And I'm like, I feel so dumb that it obviously has to talk down to me now because I've given it some kind of cue.
Oh, no. And that's O3 is doing that too? It's not.
Yeah.
Oh, because have you followed the controversy online about 4.0 being too sycophantic? Oh, no, 'cause you're
Yeah,
you're
well,
on.
I saw Ethan Mollick's comments that O3 is not as sycophantic. Like,
Yes.
you can ask it
Yeah.
to be critical, or it's, like, a little bit more even-handed.
Well, OpenAI did this update of 4.0 recently, which is, I think, what most people use, sort of day to day, and it got, like, extremely sycophantic and was just, like, agreeing with people like, "You're right, dude. You said the smartest thing anyone's ever said on this topic." And everyone was like, "Well, not really. It was just like a kind of a throwaway comment." And so Sam Altman posted on X last night or the night before, we know it's 4.0 is, like, way too sycophantic. We're walking back the fine tuning. It's been really interesting what we're learning. We'll share more on it later. And I thought that's fascinating. Like, they it got too so sycophantic that they literally were walking back the latest round of fine tuning on the model. So,
Maybe that's the one I've been using as my therapist, which is why I feel so good lately.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
You're
amazing.
nailing it. Yeah.
Not since I started using O3, because now it's just, "Howdy, partner. Here's a little jokey thing. Grab your blazer. Head on out. You got this."
Grab your blazer is so funny. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm gonna say that to you all the time when we're in person.
Please do. I love a good blazer, as you know. It defines me, apparently. But it is like you said, the agentism is the cool part,
Yeah,
is it's sort of like, and I love that you get to see it walk
me
through.
too. Yeah.
I just bumped up against this paywall. I'm gonna go try this other thing. Like, this is fascinating.
I know that that I whoever are their UX engineers are amazing because they definitely like, that totally keeps you involved because 'cause you're like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, you're doing that. Oh, yeah, good idea.
Whoa.
Yeah." Like,
That is so cool. And then it'll start, like you said, it'll start coding.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh my God, it's coding.
yeah.
I don't know what it's coding, but it's coding
I'm
something.
sure it's amazing. Yeah.
But when you were describing the model selection, it made me think of that Seinfeld episode when he hires the contractor to do his kitchen, and the contractor keeps asking him, like, every single little decision, like, do you like this finish on the knobs?" Or, "Do you want me to put," and that's how it felt before. It was like, "Would you like me to go do this thing?" And you're like, "Yes, please go do that." But now you've got, like, an experienced contractor who was just gonna make some decisions for you, like correcting your spelling and joking with you. So the reasoning models are getting much more powerful. And as we talked about, I think on our last podcast or one of our recent ones, we've had some research already with the first version of the reasoning models that showed real promise in understanding nuance and legal practice, and separately found that RAG, retrieval augmented generation techniques, are reducing hallucinations, because I have heard that the newest reasoning model is not as strong in terms
Yeah.
of curbing hallucinations, which is interesting, right? It
Yeah.
sort of goes to the jagged frontier thing. And I was doing retirement planning on O3, And it got to the end, and I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing. I am in such a good spot." And then I drilled in on the math, and I'm like, "No, no, no, that is a major miscalculation." So I told it, and what was interesting was it went through and it redid all of its math, and it created, like, this really complicated table where it went through each step of the mathematical equation and put a green check mark, and then one had, like, a red X, and it was like, "Here's where I made the mistake."
Huh.
I'm like, "Well, good thing I pointed it out, partner, because I was about to go buy a whole bunch of blazers, and now I gotta stick with this one."
I was about to buy my retirement blazer, which
And it was gonna be gold plated. So I think that's interesting. Had you heard that about the
I
hallucination?
did I mean, I've just seen people saying it online. I don't think I've noticed it myself, but I'm which is not to say that I I haven't looked closely, maybe I should have noticed it, but I haven't noticed it. But yeah, I've people have been saying that. And I think I even read somewhere why it's true, but of course I can't now remember. So, sorry about that.
Yeah. So keep your eye out for that, and prepare your counter arguments for the lawyers, because this is, of
Yeah.
course, top of mind for all lawyers. And so if the hallucinations are actually getting worse in the reasoning models, it's a hard conversation to have to say, but it's actually smarter
Yeah.
than the model that came before it.
Yeah.
And so the last thing that we've sort of alluded to before we jump into our main topic is that, um, and maybe we already explicitly said it, but that OpenAI has added long-term memory to this.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So now it's really keeping track of what you've done, throughout your relationship with ChatGPT or your chosen platform. But one thing that, again, Ethan Malik pointed out is that if you have it toggled on, it can contaminate the results of an individual search by pulling in all sorts of past information or try to please you based on what it knows you prefer.
And so you can prompt around that by saying, "Do not include in your thinking any of our previous conversations." Like, there's there you but so and sometimes you want to be able to say that, to make sure that you get that better answer, so
I actually toggled it completely off
Oh, you did?
because
Yeah.
I did it just kept referencing very similar, like, it always talks about my French bulldog in its answers, and I don't really need it to,
You're
like,
like, "I know all about my French bulldog, I don't need anything from you on that?"
if
Like
I'm asking about rate cuts, like, it really doesn't have anything to do with my French bulldog, so I can see what he means, and, but it is interesting when you toggle it on, if it's sort of like a personal query and you want it to incorporate everything about you.
it remembers things that I asked it early in the game, like in December of 2022, that I had just completely I guess this happened to you as well, things I had completely forgotten I ever asked it about. It will it will remind me of, which is pretty amazing. Yeah.
I told you it referenced a job that I had looked at the very beginning of the Gen AI era and was curious about, and I completely forgot about the job, and it was like, this is, very similar to the work you would have done if you had applied to be X," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I forgot I was thinking about applying for that." So it can be a little bit unnerving, but also interesting. So huge advancements in the AI space for the models generally, and probably things that are not on the radar of most lawyers, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Thank you for tuning in to 2030 Vision, AI and the Future of Law. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Stay informed and inspired as we continue to explore the AI driven future of the legal profession. We'll see you next time.